So chat, today we're talking about we're going to be going over the Great Nerf campaign and basically everything about this. So what is the Great Nerf campaign? This is basically going to be a list of nerfs to help balance the game and bring the general power of builds down. It will try to help pretty much, it's going to target pretty much every sort of build damn near in the game, with some being more powerful than others. So like the idea is at the moment Deepwoken's kind of at a point where we have the general power of builds being really high. A lot of people have complained about the game feeling a lot more power creep than in the past. And usually, a lot of people will agree that over time the game will slowly have a rise. But more than ever, it's been feeling like it's been a bit too much than what it should be at the moment. And so we're going to be going over basically why does this need to exist, and the reason why I made this presentation today is because of conquest, right? So consider this: with the release of verse 2, Deepwoken builds got a lot more powerful. You can compare any average verse 2 build and compare it to verse 1 build today, and I'm not going to say it's night and day, but it's a lot powerful, especially with min-max potential. Part of that is due to Shrine of Order, but also due to the fact that it's a lot easier to get specifically what you want in verse 2. But in general, the game has had more content to make builds stronger. Compare, for example, the end of verse 1 heavy builds to heavy builds today, or mage builds back then to mage builds today. There is a very big difference. Still, you can argue just as much cheese, but they become a lot more powerful, right? And my worry is that Conquest, with all the new content it's adding, has the potential to potentially boost further the power of builds. And I can't really explain why I feel this way, because obviously that's stuff you guys don't know about. But just trust me when I say I feel as if this is needed because of the new stuff that Conquest will bring into the game. I really feel as if we keep going up, Conquest release, I feel like it's going to spike up like crazy.
What does the scouter say about his power level? It's over 9,000! What, 9,000?
So I think before we get to that potential big spike, which I know is going to happen no matter what, let's reduce the power of builds overall. That way, whenever the spike comes back, we're at least equal to what we have now or a little bit less. So let's go over what now. We need to look at each build in Deepwoken and address probably the biggest issues and offer solutions. Keep in mind that these aren't final, and these are obviously just like subject to discussion and change. And these are things I've discussed so far with competitive players, and I'm here today with you guys to gather just more thoughts on it today. Starting off with the first one, obviously, Mage. So the idea is I'm going to be researching the cheesiness of Mage playstyles and get them nerfed pretty directly, right? I'm just looking at things because a lot of times there's like nerfs to mages, but specific things will still be extremely powerful. These can include ice and metal cheese. I've been seeing this combo a lot. People using Rampart and then iceberging, or using Iron Sink Pool and then ice cubes, or people abusing ice traps with different sort of shit with metal, right? It's time to attack these things directly. Instead of nerfing all mage or range, we need to start addressing these things directly, like these specific combos. Second off, cheese heavy weapons. No surprise, but there's been an abundance of builds that not only have mage cheese as previously shown before, but also abuse heavy weapons that are much stronger compared to the rest of its class. If you compare the top sort of heavies that we see today, Wormtooth, Peerkeepers, Cryptblade, Grantaruska, and specific Hive Lord builds, they are much stronger compared to like where your average heavy weapon is. Even other classes, for example, like medium and light, at least those are usually, there's stronger ones, but they're not so far above the rest. A lot of people can agree all of light weapon has something good to it. They can go one by one and address the specific things, but I think these weapons are way too strong compared to, previous other heavy weapons, and I think they should be addressed. Next up is, this is kind of in a different slide. This is more on the competitive side because people don't understand this as much casually, but this is punishment. This is a mantra that some have seen as too strong and cheese, others think it's fine, so I decided to make this another slide. The main thing I'll say on this is this, okay? Other counters in the game like Prediction, Equalizer, and Illusory Counter have been nerfed. They've been big nerfed. Prediction has very long end lag if you miss. Same with Equalizer, same with Count. They nerfed Illusory Counter. Who was using that? But Punishment has kind of gone unscathed, and I think it's a bit unfair to have a counter that is much stronger than the rest So I think they all need to be equalized, pun intended, right? I know some people don't understand that punishment. It's like, what punishment? That seems like it's a trash heavy mantra. Trust me, the people who know how to abuse it can use it very well. Next up, the Great Light Weapon Nerf. This is going to be a pretty broad nerf to light weapon swing speed. Some people disagree, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the swing speed. But for now, I think this will reduce the power of it quite a bit. In my opinion, I think light weapon, people will argue that because of punishment and things like heavy uppercut and how heavy can play, that heavies as a whole is still stronger than light weapon. I would disagree. I still think the cheese heavy weapons are potentially stronger, like a good bit. But light weapons, in my opinion, remove all the cheese and light weapons, I think are on top, right? So basically, it would have to reduce. You would reduce the power of its M1s, but in compensation, introduce other things to light weapon like more mantras. It lacks the most amount of mantras. It lacks the most amount of legendary weapons, and I think the reason is because the devs view it as like, oh, they're like, light weapon. Well, where are the light weapon mantras? Where are the light weapon legendary weapons? Right? I think what they should do, in my opinion, is reduce the swing speeds of all these, right? And then finally, we can introduce more content to add a little bit more variety. I know a lot of people are going to be like, what? These are insane. But hear me out. I don't think light will be completely gutted if they add some compensation like mantras / legendary weapon. Because I think the casual player will hear this and be happy about it. But again, keep in mind, it's about nerfing pretty much everything, in my opinion. So I think light weapons should get something as well. Then medium fixes. I feel like medium feels like the least problematic. Sometimes there will be a very big cheese weapon that pulls up, like when Shatter Katana drops or Purple Cloud, but those have been pretty addressed, I feel. At the moment, from what I've been hearing, it just seems like some of the mantras should be toned down a little bit, like Prominent Straw not hitting behind block, Twin Cleave getting maybe like a nerf and wind up, or something adjacent to just nerf it just a little bit. I don't think there's anything really too crazy here. If anything, I think maybe Spear should get a little bit of a hitbox fix so it's not as bad. Overworld has extreme amounts of cheeses, insane cheeses, and especially for Conquest, if we're allowing bells, assassinations, potions, and other things that are in the overworld that people can abuse in the overworld, that's going to probably translate over into Conquest in some way, shape, or form. I think we should address that, especially now that we have overworld ranks. It could just be a lot of general fixes. In my opinion, things to look at: assassinations, mobility / mobility mantras is a big one in my opinion. Potions, maybe take a look at a few of those. Needs more specific. I need more research in that one. And then niche cases, for example, like there are some complaints that you can't hear judgment, but it can still target you. So reflection, why exactly is this needed? Is it really that much of a problem? Yes, I actually feel like this is actually a pretty big problem, especially because of the content that Conquest can potentially bring and switch things up. I think with Verse 1, if you take a look at it, Verse 1 was starting to get to a point where it was starting to become a lot more balanced than in previous Verse 1 eras. Right before Verse 2 came out was the most balanced Verse 1 ever was, and even with that, Verse 2 had extreme amounts of unbalance on release. So what about, now take a look at the PvP update that's going to bring a lot of PvP content to the game. I know that we have more testers now to try and balance things out, but I feel like there's going to be a lot of things that are just unseen to the tester eye that's going to be impossible to think about, and it's going to lead to a lot more unfun shit. And I feel as if we should at least take a look at what we have now and potentially balance at least the stuff we have now so we can prepare for what Conquest could potentially rain down and bring up. Thank you for attending. This is pretty much all I really had to say.
If y'all enjoyed the video, make sure to go click on these other videos, man, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.